You are looking at the Formula Alpha 2023. This is the newest mod for Assetto Corsa from virtual racing cars. And if you're thinking to yourself, great, just what we need, another modern Formula car for AC, hang on a minute. I'm going to show you some of the technical features of this car. Some of the capabilities of this Formula Alpha 2023 are things we have never seen in Assetto Corsa before, and it's really blown my mind. So I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about the technical side of things, but if you're just here to find out how this car drives, feel free to skip ahead. Probably half the video is going to be dedicated to me covering the features of this car. So if the technical side of things doesn't interest you, as I say, just feel free to skip ahead. But I am going to talk about some of the unique and even Assetto Corsa first features that this car packs. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so welcome on board the Formula Alpha 2023. We're here at Imola. And a couple things you'll notice right away. One, doesn't appear that we have any engine sounds. That is not an audio issue. We have to fire up the engine, and I will get to that in just a second. But like I mentioned off the top of the video, we're going to be deep diving into the technical side of things. So I did want to let you know that there is a CSP and a non-CSP version of this car. So if all you want is a great driving, fun to drive, modern Formula 1 car, you can just go with the non-CSP version, just throw it into Assetto Corsa and drive it and enjoy it. You don't have to do the technical side. They've even included some setups for you if you don't want to mess with any of this. But if you want to really get the most out of the car and use some of that technical knowledge you might have about Formula 1 cars, this is going to be the machine for you. So let's get into some of the technical stuff, and we will start off, as I said, with starting off. We'll start off with starting the engine. So we need ignition on. We need to hold the start button, and we now have power. How about that? So I can give it a little rev. And before we even start driving on the track, let's talk about a couple of other things. So I'm going to go engage the clutch. I've got it mapped to a paddle on my wheel. First gear, nothing out of the ordinary. Let's say I don't give it enough gas and I want to start rolling. Whoops. Might have got a preview of it there. Let's say I don't have enough gas and I want to start rolling. I let the clutch out. Uh-oh, anti-stall. Engine kill. What happened there? All right, let's start again. So, clutch in. First gear, not enough gas. Anti-stall, pull in clutch. All right, so I kept the motor running. Yes, this has a functional anti-stall system. So you might have heard Martin Brundle talk about this. This is what happens when drivers in the real Formula 1 don't quite get things right at the start of the race. They might engage their anti-stall system, and it means they have to basically repeat the launch process again. So that can actually happen in this car. So again, not quite enough gas to get rolling. I'm letting out the clutch and I engage the anti-stall. And you might be saying to yourself, well, what good is anti-stall if you can't stall? But you kind of get a preview of it, but you can stall. So if I let the clutch out and don't pull in the clutch in time, that anti-stall will only last so long, and then the car automatically kills the engine. Okay, so you have to manually start this car. There is anti-stall, and you can actually properly stall the car. So let's go one more time here. Let's start the engine, because I want to show you where this matters, all right? So plenty of gas here, and once you're rolling, it drives like any other, well, not like any other car, but it drives as you would expect. But where does stalling actually come into play? Well, when you go off track. It's the same thing in real life. You see drivers go off track, what happens? Trying to get back on track, anti-stall, so you got to get the clutch in time, otherwise you stall the engine and have to go back to neutral. But thankfully I engaged the anti-stall there and can get myself going again. So a functional anti-stall system. Let that sink in for a second. Let's go one more time. Let's say I go to make this turn, not quite, and then I'm trying to go across the grass. I forget to get into the right gear, and oh, I missed it. I missed my anti-stall window, so that means I have to engage the clutch, go back to neutral, press the start button, and get myself going again. So a functional anti-stall system and a car you could properly stall in Assetto Corsa, that is pretty amazing. A few other things here before we even get into talking about what we can do in the pits. Let's get rolling on track here from the most awkward place possible. You will notice, or you may have noticed, that the tires have a sheen on them. That sheen is going to get less. These tires can scuff. What's the big deal about scuffing tires, you might ask? Well, they scuff according to how the tires wear. So I'm not going to give you the full demo here, but as you go around a track, as you know, tires do not wear evenly. It depends on the track. You know, certain tires get pushed more than others. Maybe your outside of the tire gets pushed a little bit harder, and these tires will scuff accordingly. So it's more than just a generic visual trick. It scuffs according to how the tire is wearing. That's a pretty impressive thing. I also want to bring your attention, you've probably already noticed it at the center of your screen. We have this nice wheel here, and it's got a lot of information on it, and you can see it says warm up at the bottom of the wheel. That is basically, well, what you would expect. So you're warming up the car, but you can map buttons. It's optional E and F, and you can change. Now I'm viewing the quali mode. Now I'm viewing the setup mode, and all those acronyms that you see on your screen there, I'll cover that when I get into the pit. Whoops. Almost stalled it. There is just a generic map if that's all you want. You can also go into race mode, and you see it has your MGUK percentage remaining. And we're back to warm-up mode, so you can select different screens, which is fantastic. And I'll get into more about the wheel when we get into the pits, but I wanted to show you that. And the last thing I want to show you is maps. So we have strats, as you can see here. We have 8 in total. And we have this on most modern Formula 1 cars in Assetto Corsa. You have some level of different engine deploys, different MGUK deploy modes, I should say. Often you have quali, you have race, you have, what would you call it, harvest or regen or something like that. But it's even cooler on the Formula Alpha 2023. And I'll show you that when we get into the pits. So let's go into the pits now. All right, so here we have a pit setup menu that you've probably never seen the likes of before. So because this is built to the specs of Formula 1, current gen Formula 1, fixed gear ratios, so top speed theoretical of 356. As you might expect, we have a bunch of different tire compounds ranging from C5 to C... Well, actually, we have wet tires, we have intermediate, but we have C0 to C5 in the dry tires. So it has a little acronym here: US for ultra soft, SS super soft, soft, medium, and hard, and super hard, I would guess. So nothing unusual there. Fuel, maximum fuel capacity of 145 liters. Electronics deployment strategy, as I told you, there's 8 possible deployment strategies. You also have engine brake. We also have aero. Now, we can buzz around the car here, right? Yes, and as you can see, we have visual changes here, much like we had with the Formula Alpha 2022. Where is my... I thought we had selectable wings. There we go. Okay, so aero kit, medium, high, and low, and it changes the rear wing, as you can see. And then if we buzz over to the front wing here, we have different noses, as you can see, and you can even have different angle for the left and right side of the front wing. Yes, so if you want to make minute aero adjustments and have your front wing be asymmetrical, you can do so on the Formula Alpha 2023. That is pretty amazing. Going over to brakes now. We have brake bias, as you might expect, but we also have brake migration and ramp, and it explains it in the little call out here. But basically, it has dynamic brake bias, and you can set that in the pit menu to your liking. There's even a ramp allowing you to set how fast you want that brake migration to engage. and then you might see the brake magic bias. What is brake magic, you might ask? Well, if you're doing an outlap and want to get heat in your tires without pushing the car, let's say you don't want to burn up your MGUK energy, you can use brake magic, and it's set to either a toggle or a press, and when it's engaged, it throws the brake bias, as you can see, way over to 88%. And what that's going to do is, under braking, of course, it's going to give really interesting braking behavior, and it's going to throw a bunch of heat into the tires. So yes, you can heat the tires up without using too much MGUK energy. So pretty amazing things going on with the brakes here. Absolutely incredible. Going over to another incredible thing, the differential. Now, we're used to preload, we're used to coast. We have entry, mid, and high speed. So what this is going to allow you to do is adjust sort of the three corner phases independently, and you can even adjust the speed at which the high speed differential kicks in. So pretty amazing. If you're somebody who really likes to get into the nuts and bolts, literally, of tuning a car, I mean, this Alpha 23 allows you to do some pretty incredible things. I'm not doing a great job explaining them, but once you have the car, you can mouse over, and it gives a good explanation of what each of those do. Same for brake bias, of course. We have force feedback linearity, suspensions, as you might expect, anti-roll bar, wheel rate, height, travel range, nothing too unusual there. Suspension page 2, camber and toe. What is not unique to the 23, but something VRC has done, is you can see it visually. So if you look at the right front tire where my mouse is there, as I adjust this, whoops, you can see that camber effect, and you can see the toe effect. Absolutely incredible level of detail here. Same thing they had with the 22. So suspension page 3, again, more stuff you would expect. The fine tuning of the suspension. Heave springs, same thing again that you're probably used to. We'll get into visuals now. The halo, if we go in car here, you can switch that halo off. I know a lot of people still aren't used to seeing the halo, so you can just switch that off. Now, here's where it gets especially cool visually. So the steering wheel you're seeing at your screen, for those who paid attention in the first part of the video, you'll notice it doesn't match. Yes, we have different steering wheels. And even, ta-da, a Williams steering wheel. So it moves the screen onto a permanent part of the car instead of rotating with the wheel. So if that's your preference, you may do so, or select one of the other wheels. You can also adjust these RPM LEDs here into different patterns, sequential block, or just block, and RPM shift target. So if you're somebody who finds themselves shifting late, you can set it to earlier, so to make sure you give yourself enough time to shift. Like, you have that bright blue telling you to shift, and even if you're usually late, you can set it early so that it gives you a nice bright indicator. Amazing. I've never seen that before. Strategy, nothing different than you're used to. Bump stops, a lot of customization here at the bump stops. Again, getting into the real fine tuning of the suspension. Here we have deployment strats. Okay, so I told you about strats 1 through 8. So what you can do is set up all different strategies, 8 different strategies, and you can customize them. So again, normally we see things like qualifying mode. You might see, race, balanced, recovery, something like that. You can customize your 8 modes. So right now in millijoules, we have, for strat 1, we have 0 millijoules of this is it millijoules? Yes, must be, of deployment, and it's set to recover. So set to recovery. There is recovery or delivery. So this at 0 deployment and priority being recovery. This is your regen mode. Basically, you set it to strat 1, you're going to fill your battery faster than any other mode. Strat 2 is the opposite. So you have full deploy for And then you have priority delivery. So this is your party mode. This is all out. This is all delivery. It's not worried about recovery. This is going to be your fastest mode. And then as you can see kind of visually here as the bar gets less and less. So strat 3 is still quite high deploy and the priority is delivery. And then when we get down to kind of, the mid tier here, actually one more here, once it goes below the halfway point, so 1.8, 1.5, 1.2, those are all recovery modes. So you're going to get some level of deploy, but it's still going to be trying to recover overall. So think of this more as your almost MGU-H mode, I guess would be the best way to reference it. So is it going to the motor or is it going to the battery? It's not actually, oh yeah, it is MGU-H. Huh, I was right. So yes, this is your MGU-H saying whether it's going to give that extra little boost to the motors or is it going to give its energy to the batteries. So custom strats, pretty cool. Deployment tuning, this is even more of those deployment modes. So you can see right now, once the car hits 325 kilometers per hour, it's going to stop deploying, if you have the DRS open, that is, it's going to stop deploying any any energy from the electric motors. So that's under DRS. We have the same thing without DRS. So at 315 kilometers an hour, DRS closed, it's going to stop deploying electrical energy. So it's probably going to translate to that being pretty close to the top speed because you're fighting against the air at that point without that extra electrical boost. And then MGUK will be cut off at 160. Anything below 160 kilometers an hour, you will get nothing. It's just going to be on the internal combustion engine. And then split 5. I actually don't know what these do. Values below 100 will reduce the target in. Okay, so this is something I'm going to have to look into. I'm not sure exactly what that does, but again, more tuning on the deployment modes. Almost done, don't worry. And then we have torque maps and pedal maps. So right now they're set to balanced and linear. So torque maps, you can set how the peak torque is delivered. In wet mode, obviously it's going to tone it down. And then we have high, which is, you're using the full torque based on the accelerator position. So if you're facing some adverse conditions, you would go with that, and it's going to make the car a little bit more tame. Low is probably for your beginner driver. Balance is what it's set at normally. That's where I leave it. And then we have the same thing basically for the pedal map. So if you think of this almost like a gamma. So wet, it's not going to be too sensitive early in the accelerator pedal travel. But as you go all the way to aggressive, it's going to give a lot more beans a lot earlier in the travel range of the accelerator. And finally, in the display, so you can customize different facets of the screen, which is really cool. You can even disable certain screens if you wish. Brightness modes, I mean, the customization level is incredible. So that is your pit menu with the Formula Alpha 2023. So almost limitless customization options, as I say, and still a lot more for me to learn. But this is what I've got so far. But again, I do want to stress that out of the box, just on default, this car drives great. So you don't need to do any of this. It's not like you have to have this perfectly tuned in order to turn decent laps. It has a great default setup, but it just does allow you this level of customization should you choose to use it. So unbelievably impressive here. And then I got one more thing to show you before we finally start turning laps. Okay, so just before we start turning laps, I did want to show you that all of those customization options that we just looked at, if you're thinking to yourself, well, it's going to take forever to build a setup like that, there's too many options. Well, thankfully, thanks to the extended controls app that we have, you can actually assign buttons on your keyboard, on your wheel, whatever, to a lot of the different things I just talked about. So when we talk about the fine levels of brake balance adjustment, I have buttons assigned to that. That brake magic mode that I was telling you about, we can assign a button to that. So you can just engage it, warm the tires up. brake migration, differential for entry, high speed, mid, and then the pedal map and the torque maps I talked about. We also have buttons for that, so you can adjust all that on the fly. So again, you don't have to have it perfect in the pits. You can adjust that as you're going. So almost limitless customization. Well, yeah, virtually unlimited customization in the pit menu, and even in game, even as you're driving, if something is bothering you. Obviously, you know, we have dynamic weather in Assetto Corsa now, so if it becomes wet or if it goes from wet to dry and you want to change the pedal map, the torque map to better suit you know, make the car a little bit more reliable in the adverse conditions, you can do so on the fly, which is pretty amazing. But yeah, I just wanted to show you the extended controls app because it does allow you to do a lot of this on the fly. And now it is finally time to drive the Formula Alpha 2023. I know that was a long-winded intro, but I did want to cover some of the features of this incredible car. So we have power, we have first gear, and we are safely away without engaging the anti-stall. Phenomenal. Alright, so we're just going to turn some laps here at Imola, and I'm going to talk to you about the driving experience of the Formula Alpha 23. For those that skipped ahead, understand we covered a lot of very nitty-gritty technical details of this car. Right now I am running Strat 1, and for those paying attention, that is simply the recovery mode. So you can see that bar on the left side of my dash there. It's not depleting at all. Reason being is I'm not actually using any of the electrical energy via the motors. If I switch to Strat 2 just quickly, you will see that bar on the left side of the dash screen start to diminish. And again, keep an eye on the tires. You can see they are very shiny at this point, but as I make my way around the track further and further and start to put some wear on those tires, you will see the scuffing engaged. It doesn't work in replay mode. It only works in in-game mode, but you will see that accurate scuffing, which is incredible. Back to Strat 1 here. And I can't drive, apparently. DRS open for the first time. We can probably go with Strat 8 here. Just a low level of deploy. We might even go Strat 7 just to help get some heat in those tires. I can also go with the brake magic button to accelerate getting heat into the tires. But for now, I think I will do it the old-fashioned way. So you see a slight drop in the available electrical energy, which is the left bar there on the dash. As I go up the hill here, you can see it start to pull down just slightly, but it's really still trying to recover more than it's trying to deploy, so that's fine. Car is feeling quite confident already, and for those wondering how it does feel, well, it's phenomenal. Phenomenal. I enjoyed the 22. I enjoy this a lot more. I would say with the 22, you know, a lot of the talk, it was the first car we had for Assetto Corsa that had porpoising. If you remember back early in the most recent regulation change for Formula 1, the talk of Formula 1 in terms of technical was how certain teams were going to get past the porpoising effect. And the VRC team was able to put it in their Alpha 22, and so that was a technical achievement. And the car itself drove really, really nicely. I thought they did a better job in a straight line with the car. I thought the speeds you could reach with that, as opposed to the Formula Hybrid 22, were more realistic. But I did enjoy the cornering feel more in the Formula Hybrid. And whereas it feels to me like Race Sim Studio played it pretty conservative going from 22 to 23, it does not feel that way at all with the Formula Alpha. The cornering to me is as good in this 23 as the Formula Hybrid 23, so it seems to have, you know, improved its biggest weakness in my eyes. And yeah, just a pretty extraordinary car. in all respects. And again, if you're just here to know how this drives, outstanding is the best word I can use. It truly feels great, and yeah, as I say, they seem to have improved their biggest weakness and thrown in so many improvements. Again, RaceSim Studio, I will forever be a fan of RaceSim Studio, but I stand by my belief that they played it perhaps a little bit too conservative with the Formula Hybrid 23. Not so with this Formula Alpha 23. This is bold, this is aggressive, this is daring, you know, and it seems like virtual racing cars really push the envelope of what you can do with a car in Assetto Corsa, and is just unbelievably impressive in all facets. So as you can see, we're starting to get some pretty consistent whoa. Don't stall it. Ooh, see that? Anti-stall saved me there. So just as I was saying, I'm starting to get some pretty consistent lines and times with this car, in consideration to the current strategy. I spun, but we got it back safely. So I think we can go ahead and try a lap with Strat 2. I'm going to need all the juice I can get. So I'm going to go Strat 1, see if I can recover a bit more energy going down the hill here. And we'll switch to Strat 2 as we enter the start-finish, and we'll see if we can get down into 119s, maybe into the 118s here at Imola. All right, let's go. So best lap so far, I think, was about a 121, so we should be able to smoke that on Strat 2. Up a half second already. No spin that time, mercifully. You can see what Strat 2 does up this hill. Just gaining so much time on my previous best. Be the same here. Yep, up now over 2 seconds versus my previous best. A lot of power there. See, that's where if you're struggling with that lap after lap, you can change the torque application, you can change the pedal curve to find something that works better for you. You can even change it mid-lap and then change it back. Just about, yep. So 118.862. Let's go ahead and recover some juice here. So you can see the car kind of topping out. Didn't see exactly what the speed was, but you can tell that it sort of plateaus in terms of its top speed on the start-finish straight there. So that's where that DRS, whoops, that should be fourth gear. That's where that DRS top speed, what am I trying to say here? When you choose the setting of where the MGUK stops deploying based on speed with DRS open, by default it's set to 325, but I could probably turn that up to like 330 and get a little bit more time out of this car. So it's just fine adjustments like that you're able to make with this car that, as I say, I think is probably an industry first. It's just a wonderful technical achievement is this Formula Alpha 2023, and again, so much fun to drive. Like, it's so comparatively stable to the Formula Alpha 22. I think this drives as good as the Formula Hybrid 23. Of the current gen of Formula 1 cars we have for Assetto Corsa, I would say the Formula Hybrid 23 was probably my favorite to drive. It is now the Formula Alpha 23. I don't mind saying that. That's all due respect to RaceSim Studio. I will, again, forever be a fan of their work, but I just think Formula Alpha 23 by Virtual Racing Cars is kind of the new standard for modern Formula cars. I really think they nailed this across any way you want to look at it. This is a beautiful, amazing technical achievement for Assetto Corsa, and it just drives brilliantly as well. So yeah, really something. All right, so I think I have sufficiently hyped up this car, and I'm excited for you guys to drive it. We'll go one more fast lap here, see if we can top that 1:18.8. We have a bit less fuel now, but a bit more wear in the tires, so don't know if that's actually possible. It's especially not possible when I miss apexes like that, but we'll see what happens. Woo. All right, lots of juice here. Strat 2, do your thing. And I pushed too hard. So sad. Alright, so I think I'm gonna have to be content. Anti-stall. Doing its thing. Stuck in the grass a little bit. There we go. Yeah. So, anyway. Yeah, 1:18.8 is gonna be my fastest. I hate ending on an error like that, but I think you guys get the point. Absolutely phenomenal car. And just limitless customization, so many firsts for Assetto Corsa. Unbelievable job, VRC modding team, aka Virtual Racing Cars. These guys nail it time after time, and this one is just so good. I'm excited for you guys to drive it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Enjoy this full volume replay, and we'll see you next time.